I made a shooting star that spins around and bounces off objects. I gave it a rainbow trail using 2D particles. I put a link to the GitHub project in the description if you want to check it out. Start out with a 2D RigidBody node, renamed to Shooting Star. Make a new physics material, and change the settings to 0 friction, 1 bounce, and 0 gravity. Add a sprite child node, and drag the transparent star image into the texture dropdown. I added a margin in GIMP so it's centered by default. With the sprite selected, generate the collision polygon. I set simplification to 1.5, shrink to 1, and grow to 0. Now it can interact with other objects. Then I made a test scene with 4 static body walls around the center. Add an instance of the star scene to the main node, and a camera 2D with current enabled. If I play the scene, the star does not move, so I attach a new script to the star scene. On ready, you can add a central force to make it fly towards the corner, but I want the trajectory to change when it bounces. So I apply central impulse instead. Now it flies the way I want it to, but it's losing speed. So I add a max speed constant. Then in the physics process, if linear velocity is less than max speed, apply an impulse in the direction it's moving, which is different from its rotation. There's probably a better way to do this, but it works for now. I want the star to spin continuously, so I add a max rotate constant as well. Then apply torque impulses in the direction it's spinning until it reaches max rotation. I want it to fly in different directions, so I make a random vector for the initial velocity. Make sure you call randomize somewhere in the project first. And now it's working as intended. My first thought was to use an animated sprite for the tail, but I don't like how it stays straight when it bounces. I decided to use a particles 2D node behind the sprite instead. Make a new particles process material, and drag the aura into texture. This is just a semi-transparent circle with faded edges. Disable local chords under drawing so the particles aren't dragged along with the star. Under time, I set fixed FPS to around 15, so hopefully it won't lag too much. Then turn gravity to 0 in the process material. Now it has a cloudy white trail, but I want it to taper and fade. Add a new scale curve, and select the linear preset. Drag the first point to 1 and the second to 0. This makes the particles get smaller over time. Then add a new gradient to color ramp. I'll make both points white. The first has alpha 70 and the second has 0. It already looks much better. Increase the amount and lifespan values to make the trail longer and more solid. This will vary based on max speed. I also add a copy of the aura as a sprite behind the star to fix the flickering. Now it looks more like a comet trail. Then I add another particles 2D node for the rainbow stardust. Move it to the top so it renders in the back. The stardust image is a small star with 2 dots. Assign it to texture, and disable local chords drawing. Add a new particles material, and turn off gravity. Add a scale curve, and set it from 1 to 0 like we did before. Then assign a new gradient to the color ramp. Add 4 more points within the gradient, and set them in rainbow order. And reduce the alpha channels to around 80. Also increase the amount and lifetime. It already looks pretty good, but I want the stardust to disperse. So I changed the emission shape from point to sphere and increase the radius to 55. Then set the starting angle to 360 and the angle random to 1. I could leave it like this, but I want the colors to cycle through the gradient instead of being static. First, I add a timer for 0.5 seconds and auto start enabled. Connect the timeout signal to a change color function. Here I get the gradient list and loop through the offsets. Use float modulus to shift the offsets by 0.05 and wrap around to -1. Then space out the color offsets from 5 to 0. Now it looks the way I want. I may have to turn down some effects for performance, we'll have to see. Thank you for watching this episode of Derp, and have a great day.